Excellent. So, as I say, my name is Lucy, and today we are going to be looking at vLookups. So, vLookups are really useful. They can be used in all sorts of different ways, and people have an idea that they're very complicated, and they're not that bad once you get your head around them. So as I was saying, I will try today to talk a little bit slower and not get too excited. And I will try to remember that if you've not used a vLookup before, it's all a bit new. So I will try to make sure that I'm explaining the concepts nice and clearly to you. Okay. There is an opportunity. You have got the Q&A, so if you're having difficulty at any point, please just raise your hand or put something into, so I'm doing that because you've probably got a bar just above my head, and you can put something into the Q&A. I will pause every now and again. Okay. Just to let you know about upcoming webinars as well, we've not decided what we're doing at the next webinar, so if you've got any ideas, let me know. Then we're doing some stuff around sort of table of contents and tables and equations in Word, and then our final one before we break up for Christmas is some graphic design basics, so that should be quite a lot of fun. Anyway, without further ado, let's get stuck into vLookups. So I'm just going to turn the video off. There we go. All right. Okay, so a vLookup, what is the point in that? Well, let me just pop that. How am I going to get that out of the way? Pop that over there, that's out of the way. So a vLookup can be really useful for a couple of different reasons. Let's say, for example, here, I've got some stuff. Now, this has just come out of our course booking system. I use stuff from the course booking system that has been anonymized, so these employee IDs aren't real. And I use it because it's a great sort of dump of data. And quite often when you have databases, you get these big dumps of data out of them, and then you need to do things with them. So vLookup is something that would be quite common you would need to do. So if we go here, and I just use my Control and Down key, that takes us to the very last row. And you can see here that I've got 9,759 rows of data. So I've got nearly 10,000 rows of data. And if I just do Control and my up arrow, that should, oops. Yeah, oh, it's taken me out there. Let's just do A1 enter. Whoops. Oh, dearie me. I'm all fumbly today. All fumbles. All right, let's Control Z, that one. All right. So, yeah, so I've got all of this data here. Now, as you can see, as people are coming to different courses, we've got a bunch of course names here. Someone might have been to more than one course, and I might want to know what their name is. So their name, let's just, there we go, let's go to A2, excellent. If I want to know what their name is, I might have that data stored somewhere else. So here, for example, I've got another tab, and on this tab, I have an employee ID and a person's name. I was really original when I named this because obviously I want to make sure this is anonymous. So all of these people have the first name person and the surname of a number. So as you can see here, we've got this person 1, person 2, person 3, and so on. We've also got some stuff here about age and gender and their faculty. But let's just have a look at these numbers here. So I've got these employee IDs, I've got these person names. So what I want to do is I want to take the person's name and I want to put it in this other spreadsheet here. So there is a unique identifier between these two tables, all right? I've got my employee ID is in both tables. Yeah, so employee ID is in both tables, so that I can link these things together. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a vLookup, okay? So what a vLookup does is it says, hey, Excel, I would like you to look at a piece of data. So in this case, look at the employee ID. I would then like you to go away and have a look at a table of data. So in that case, I want you to come and look at this table here. And I would like you to find that employee ID and then tell me what it says in one of these columns along here. Okay. Right. So I'm going to make my life a lot easier. No, we'll make my life hard to start with. Why not? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in equals. Remember, if you're doing a formula, always type in equals, and I'm going to go vLook. There you go. As soon as I do that, we get this vLookup. So I'll double click on that. And it's talking me through this. So it says, first of all, I want you to look up a value. So what value do I want to look up? Well, I want Excel to go look at this employee ID. Okay. So I want it, the lookup value is the employee ID. I then put in a comma, and the next thing it wants to know is the table array. So the table array, what that means is where do I want it to go and look for this information? So I've said to it, go look for the employee ID. Now I've got to tell it where to look for the employee ID. So I need to come into my person data, and I need to grab all of these, okay? So you see there, I've got, at the top there, I've got my D2, and then I've got my person data, and I've got my range. So person data exclamation mark just tells Excel that it's on a different tab. So it's the tab that's called person data. Okay, I'm just going to hit enter on that. Oops. Okay, so I've got that array now, so I can now put in a comma at the end of that. And you'll see as I put the comma in there, it's taken me to a column index number. Okay, so it's taken me to the next thing. So what it wants to know now is, all right, counting from the right-hand side, what number column is this information you want me to return, right? So in my table, I've got my employee ID, and then I've got my name next to it. So employee ID is column 1, the name is column 2. So my column index here is number 2. I'll talk about that more, don't worry. So I've got my column index number 2, and then I'm going to go comma to take me to my next. Now, this is an optional field, so this is an optional part of the formula, which is this true or false? And true or false just means, are you looking for an approximate match, or do you need an exact match? So if you've got lots and lots and lots of data, then you may want to go for an approximate match, because it will be faster. But in this case, I need to go for an exact match. And that's because otherwise I will get false returns, I'll get bad returns. Because if it's going from an approximate match, it's just going to look for the first few numbers of that employee ID and go, oh yeah, that looks about right. And that's not what I want. I want to make sure it's looking for the exactly right ID. Okay. So in this case, I need to do an exact match. Okay. And then I can just close. Okay. So remember, you need to close. So that's all the things that I've put in there. I've got vLookup, go look in employee ID, go off look on a different sheet and look at this entire range, look at what's in column, return me what's in column 2, and I need an exact match for that D2. Thank you very much. Okay, so person 576. So shall we see whether that's right or not? So 1039548. One zero three 5948, is that what I said? No matches, can't be. Whoops. Why don't I just copy that? Copy. Oops. Oh, here we go. Back to my person data, employee ID, in there. Person 576. There you go, person 576. Yay! So it worked. So remember, with my formula here, so let's examine this formula again. We've got vLookup. I'm saying, I want you to look for this employee ID, okay? I want you to look for this employee ID. Where do I want you to go to look for it? Well, I want you to go to this other person data exclamation mark. Remember, that means just go to this sheet called person data. Let's just take that filter off. Then I want you to look, where is the table? Where do I want you to look? So I just grab this whole table, because I might as well. Okay, so I grab the whole table, and then the next thing that I wanted to know, grab that whole table, that A1 to F3380. So that's how many employee IDs I've got, 3,380. This is my column index number 2. So I said to Excel, I want you to go and look for employee ID. I want you to look in this range of data. And once you've found employee ID, I want you to tell me what is in column number 2, which is the person name. If I was looking for their age, I would say column number 3. If I was looking for their gender, I would say column number 4. If I was looking in faculty, I would say column number 5. All right. Sorry, I was practicing earlier. Okay. So that, and the final thing was, I said, no, I want you to find an exact match. So that's what that false means, because otherwise, if I change that, so remember that's person 556, if I change that and change that to true, yeah, I've got a not applicable. So it couldn't find it, because I've not asked for an exact match. So if you are going to do, if if you are going to do approximate matches as well, you really need to make sure that your original data is sorted. So in this case, it's sorted by name. If it was sorted by employee ID, I might find that, but I might not. So the default, by the way, if you don't, because you don't have to put that in at the end, the default would be to look for an approximate match. So the default is true, not false, right? Okay, so I've now got this in here. And what I'm going to show you as well is, because that was all a little bit hard, because it can be hard going and getting this bit of data, this table array here. So those of you who've attended the webinars before where we've talked about formulas will know that I'm a massive fan of naming your data ranges. So let's have a look at how we name a data range. So let's say that in here, in my formula, I don't want it to say person data exclamation mark A1 colon F33380. Let's just say I want it to say person data, or person information, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my table here, all of my information. So I've just gone into A1, I've gone Control Shift, and I've gone side. I seem to have something in column F, never mind. And then I'm going to go, so I go grab A1, I go Control and Shift and my arrow, okay, my right pointing arrow, and then I go my down arrow. And that just selects all of that data. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my name box, which is up here, where it currently says A1. You can see that there? I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to name this. So I am going to name this people info. People info, okay? No gaps. It doesn't like gaps, so I've used the capitalization. So people info, and an important thing is press enter. Okay, so I now have a named range called people info, and it includes all of that information. So that's kind of my table array now. Okay, so that's my people info, and you can see that it's got that there. Excellent. So now I'm going to go into my bookings. Let's get rid of this. Let's go through my formula again. Okay, so let's just get rid of that. And let's, oops, just want to delete all of that. Okay, so remember with here, I'm going column 1, 2, 3. So my bookings. I'm going to go in here, equals vLookup. There we go. Lookup value. Remember my look. What do I'm asking it to look for? I'm asking Excel to look for this employee ID, comma. I'm asking it to look in a particular table array. What is that table array? Well, this is where it comes in handy. And you can either use F3 if you're a keyboard shortcut person, which I am, or I'm pretty sure it's in, here it is, use in formula. So I've got this use in formula. So this is showing me all of my named data ranges that I have in this spreadsheet. So in this spreadsheet, I've got course by team. I've also got people info. So I'm going to click on people info. Okay. And I'm then going to go comma, and my column index number, remember it's column number 2 that I'm after. And I need to make sure that this is also false, as it's the exact match. And then I close up my formula to tell it I'm finished. And there we go. Now, so the named range, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click. So where I've got, so you see that I've got a little sort of fat cross at the moment. My cursor is a fat cross. I've got this tiny, tiny little square there. When I get towards the square, oh, skinny cross, fat cross, skinny cross, fat cross, skinny cross. See it? So I can now drag, most of you will probably know you can drag that, but what I can also do is I can double click. Double clicking, it will copy that formula down for the same number of rows as there are in the column next to it. Okay, so if I have gaps in my data, if I have a random blank row or 2, then it's not going to copy it. And if I have blank columns, then it's not going to work at all. So yeah, that's a really handy tip. Another reason not to have blank rows and blank columns in your spreadsheets. Okay, so one of the advantages of doing that named data range is now it's actually a lot easier for us to understand what's going on. So let's say I was looking at this spreadsheet. Let's say you're doing your HDR thing, you know, you're working on your research. It's now 2 years later, you're going back and cleaning up some of your research. It just makes it much easier to interpret when we go back and we have a look. I'm like, oh, D2, person info. Hang on, what's person info? People info, sorry. Oh yeah, that's right, it's this information here. There you go. See, so it makes life a lot easier. And then we're looking at column 2 and we're looking at false. So that is your basic vLookup. Why don't we put in the age as well? So I'm just right clicking and saying insert, and we will put in the age here as well. So from here, I'm going to go equals vLookup. You all know this by now, equals vLookup. Lookup range, it's still going to be that D2, lookup value, sorry. Comma, my table array. F3 will open up my paste name, or you can go to formulas using formula. If you know the exact name, you can just type it in, but it is case sensitive at that point. People info, I can go OK. I can then say the age, remember, was in column number 3. And then I need to make sure that we are making a false. Oh, 88, there we go. And there you go. So that just shows you how you can do that one as well. Okay. All right, so some gotchas that we have with using the vLookup. So what's really important is that it's always going to look to the right, okay? So when I look at my table array, so when I'm looking at my data, I'm going and looking up the information, I'm retrieving the information from, it's going to start here and it's going to look along, okay? Now, I could, if I wanted to, have another column in here, that wouldn't make any difference, but it is going to come looking here, and then my table array would have to start here as well. So it's only going to look in the first column of your table array. So your table array doesn't have to start in column A, but your table array, the thing you're trying to look up has to be in that first column of your table array. I hope that makes some kind of sense. All right, and so it's only going to look to the right as well. So you can only start with this first column, look something up in this first column, and then you need to know return stuff from these other columns here as well. Okay. Now another reason, so that's something that can be troubleshooting, that you might need to troubleshoot, is you need to make sure, as I say, that this is in the first column, what you're looking up is in the first column of your table array, and then it can only go and count the numbers along. So it can be quite confusing to look at, because you've got to know what that 3 is. Then what's going to happen is if I insert another column, so let's say that I'm manipulating my data and I insert another column in here, that can potentially again go and break my formula. See? That has broken my formula. If I come back in here and I delete that column, has that fixed it? Yes, it has. So you need to be very careful about not messing with your table array. So the table array, remember, is the place it's going to look up for the information and find what it wants you to return. So that's a couple of things. And there are ways to overcome that. We are looking at, in the new year, we're going to be doing another webinar, but I'll talk about that later. Okay. So now other things that we can do with this as well. So as you see, I've got all of this data here. You might not want to trawl through it. So this was really useful. What I've just shown you is how I can use this, how we can use a vLookup to sort of bind up tables. So to get information from one table and put it into another table. So in this case, because we had the employee ID many, many times, because the same people have attended lots and lots of training, but I want to know who they are, I've got another table that links their employee ID to their name. This links this table is their employee ID to the training they've attended. So this is a way for me to link the person's name with the person's ID. Other things that you can do is, because I've got a lot of information, let's say, well, even in here, you know, I've got 3,000 people, so that's quite a lot of people, obviously. So I could even use my formula to say, I could do, this is, who are you looking for? Okay, so let's say I want to do this the other way around. Let's say that I knew somebody's name, but I wanted to know their ID. So I can say to people, if you type somebody's name into this box here, I will return their employee ID down here. Okay. Now that won't work for me because it's the wrong way around, of course. But let's say I can say here is their name. Okay. So if someone puts in an employee ID here, it's going to return their name here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say equals the lookup. The lookup value is going to be this one here. Okay. So I'm going to say to Excel, people are going to type in somebody's employee ID just there. We're going to put in their lookup value. The table array, remember, is this employee ID stuff, is all of this one here. So remember, I can just click F3. I can say using formula because I've named my range. Remember how important naming your range is. And then I'm going to say column index. There would be, again, it's their name I'm looking for. So that's column number 2. And I need this to be false. It needs to be an exact match. Okay, so it's now saying that's not applicable because there's nothing written in here. But let's say I use 11,20566. Okay, so that is person 19. Okay, so this can be helpful. A vLookup can be helpful in this way as well, is that if you've got lots and lots of data here and you just want to help someone go and find some information, they can do it just by typing in something here. Okay. Now, let's say that then I wanted to also put in their age and, oh Lord, what's happening to my fingers today? Age, faculty, there we go. I'll get there eventually. All right, so from here, I've got my vLookup here. So I could just say, hey, let's just copy that vLookup down, and then let's just change the column numbers. But what's going wrong? Why have I got a not applicable? Well, let's have a look in here. Let's have a look at this formula. So what I've got here is my lookup value. See, it's looking in the wrong place. So I'm like, I really want it to look in I3. It's going to escape from there. Let's look at my formula. So this is all about relative and absolute cell references. So this at the moment is a relative cell reference. What a relative cell reference means is that if I move the formula, it will move. So when I do things like I copy a formula down, it moves that lookup value down for me as well. It moves that value within the formula down for me as well. But in this case, I don't want to. I want this formula to always look at I3. So I can do that. If only I could remember the keyboard shortcut for it. Is it F2? No. F4. So F4, you see what's happened there? I've pressed F4 and I've now got these little dollar signs. So those dollar signs mean I'm saying to Excel, no, always look at number 1. Always look at column I and always look at cell at row 3. So always look at that individual one. Now, if I hit F4 again, it means this time it goes, well, always look at row 3, but, change the column. And then if I do this, it says always look at I, but change the row. And then this says just be completely relative. Okay. So the relative thing, just again, we're going to come back to here and just talk about that relative thing. Where I've got this here, the D2, if I had made that, if I make that into an absolute cell reference and then I copy my formula down, it copies the formula down exactly. It doesn't, so that's why I needed in this case for that not to be absolute. I need that to be relative, because then when I copy that formula down, it also copies down the fact that I want to change my row, D3, D4, D5, etc. In this case, I don't want to do that. So I can now copy my formula down. Now, that's still saying person 19. That's not what I want. Why is it doing that? That's right. It's because I'm still looking at column number 2. But my faculty is in column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, column number 5. Okay, and that is faculty 5. I'll talk to you about why I've got my faculties numbered in a moment. So my age then as well is that that one there is, we come in here, again it's looking at number 2, but I need it to look at 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go 3. Okay. All right, so there you go. I've now got all of the information I need about person 19. They're in faculty number 5. They are called person 19 and their age is 42. The meaning of life. There you go. So if I then change this, so let's say I change this to this one over here and I go, what's this, 1149,117. It changes, it's now person 5 from faculty 1 who's 64. Ta-da! All right. Okay, so that's another way that you can use a vLookup. So if you've got lots of data, but you just want to be able to pull data out quickly, then you can use it for that to go looking, rather than you having to do like filters and things like that. All right. Another thing that we can do with it here is you'll see that I've got my faculties and I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in your data, you may have some columns that are in there, that some fields in your data where you're using what we call a data dictionary to look up what that data actually means. So in this case, something's come out of a database and that database stores faculty by number rather than by name. And you may have something, for example, I've seen an example recently, which is about the stages of labour. So the stages of labour are actually done through numbers, but those numbers actually mean something, but the numbers tend to be what gets recorded, but you need to then go and use your data dictionary to go and look up what that number means, okay? All right, so what I can do is as long as I know, if I know what 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I know which faculty they are, I can use a vLookup to actually sort of expose that data, if you like, to make sure that I'm not getting confused. Now, I could do that with nested if statements. So with an if statement, that's when you say, hey, if this cell contains this data, then do this or do that. So with a nested if, because it would need to be 3 or 4, it would need to be 4 levels of if statements. So it gets quite nested, it gets quite difficult, gets quite hard. So in that case, instead, what I could do is I could go fac number, and here I could go fac name. Okay, so 4, 5, fill series, so 5. So we've got arts, prof, ECMS, health and medical sciences, and sciences. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to name my range just to make my life easy. Name my range. So I'm going to come up here and go fac name. Call that fac name. Okay. So I've now got that range there. So I can come in here and I can say equals v. We're getting good at this now. Hey, you guys, I reckon you could all do this for me. vLookup. Look up that. Comma. F3 to look up my fac name. Okay, fac name, column index number, let's go. Number 2. And let's see what happens when I don't put in my final one. Okay, so professions, that is correct. There you go. Okay, now I was able to use that time I didn't use the true false. So that automatically makes it true, which means look for an estimate to look up. Because I put these in the right order, that's going to work for me. It's just a bit faster. It just means if you're working on a really large spreadsheet and it's starting to grind, it may be because your vLookup, maybe an easier way to do it. If you are looking at one as well that's grinding a lot, and your vLookup, you can actually use your vLookup. You can use a nested vLookup, and that will speed it up. Use 2 vLookups rather than 1 vLookup. If you want to know about that, you can Google it. I'm not going to get into that detail today. All right, so that's another way that you can use vLookup. It's if you've got something such as a data dictionary and you want to use that information, and it will save you using something like a nested if statement. Okay. Final thing that I'm going to show you is just another way that you could use that. So let's come into here. You'll see here I've got these all of the schools. So you might want to have another thing here that's faculty based. So this is all school based, but I might want a column that's faculty. So in that case, what I would do is I would control copy. I would grab that. I'll just open up a new tab. Why not? I would paste that in. I would go into data. I would say remove duplicates. My data has a heading. Go OK. So 9,677 duplicate values are found and removed, and 81 unique values remain. So there you go, that's my 81 schools. And I could then, from there, I would have to do it manually at this point. I would go faculty and I would go through, whoops, I put caps lock on for some reason. I would go through and I would type it what all the faculties were. I could put that in there. And then that meant I could then use a vLookup in order to add the faculty in here too. All right. How are you all feeling now, hey? Taking you on the grand tour of using vLookups. So I hope that you found some spaces that you would be able to use a vLookup. I'm just going to run through it again. While I'm doing that, if you've got any questions, you can type your questions in now, so I'll be able to answer them in a minute. But let's just run through what a vLookup looks like again. Okay, so we have got these things. We've got a vLookup. We are saying, please Excel, I want you to go and find this piece of information. This is where I want you to look. So I want you to go and look for that piece of information in a particular place. And then I want you to return what is in this particular column number when you found this thing. So you go look in this space, you find this thing, and then you return to me what's in this column here. Okay, let me just do that on your person data in here as well. Oops, did I just mess that up? I probably did, never mind. So again, let's have a look at this formula here. So what I've said here is I want you, Excel, to go and look at a particular spot. So I want you to look here. Okay, I want you to look in I3. Once you've looked in I3, I want you to look in this table array. I want you to look in all of these things. When you find what's in I3, okay, so when you find what's in I3, I want you to count the number of columns. I want you to count 2 columns, 1, 2, and I want you to show me what that looks like. Okay, so that's what we've done there. All right. So that is what a vLookup is all about. Now, as I say, this can help you with doing things like linking tables together, so taking information from one table and putting it into another table, as long as they both have the same unique identifier. In this case, it was employee ID. Well, you can do it for things like this, like showing you what form, so it's looking up information in a large spreadsheet. So I had 3,000 rows of data. So it's just an easy way to do this rather than have to go and have a look through my employee ID and that sort of thing and filter. And we can also use it then to create a little lookup. We can even create a lookup for something like a data dictionary. So anywhere where we've got something that is stored in a particular way that doesn't necessarily make sense to us. So that might be something like a lot of databases would do things like, let's say you were collecting information that was geographical. It might say, well, this was collected at geographical location 37. So you can make sure somewhere you would have defined what location 37 meant. So that's a useful way of using it. And you can also then, as I said, we could create our own little sort of data dictionary, if you like, where I can link a school to a faculty. So that's not in there automatically, but I could then add that in there. So the gotchas that you need to watch for is that what you're looking up needs to be in the first column. So the thing you're going to look up needs to be in the first column, and then you count to the right. So that can be an issue. If you are getting error messages, it may be that you need to make sure it's set as false, not true. So make sure you're looking for an exact match. And if you do start adding columns into your data array, into your table array, then you are going to cause yourself problems. You are going to have error messages. Okay. All right. So I'm not seeing anybody giving me any questions. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll. Let's do my evaluation. And we're going to launch polling. Okay, yeah. So, okay. So I hope that was useful to you. We are doing a follow-up to this. So this is vLookup. So I did mention that there are a few problems with vLookups. It can run a little bit slowly if you've got a lot of data, so it can make things grind a little bit. If you mess around and start adding columns to table arrays, it's going to cause you problems. And it can only look in one direction. So so when I wanted to say, oh, look, and someone could just type in someone's name. Oh, no, actually they can't, because you're not going to be able to get the employee ID from the person's name because those columns are in the wrong order. So in the new year, we've got one coming up, which is about index and match, which I think I might have called vLookup for grown-ups. But yeah, so there's a way that you can do the same kind of functionality you're getting from vLookup, but far more robust. And we will be looking at in the new year. But if you don't understand vLookups, you're not going to understand that one. So thank you very much for coming today. All right. I am going to close that poll. I've not got any questions coming in. If you do have any questions, put your hand up to say that you're frantically typing, because otherwise I'm going to bring this to an end. I'm just going to close that poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we've got in 2 weeks' time, we're not sure what we're doing. So if there's anything in particular you would like to look at, please let us know at it.training@adelaide.edu.au. We will put this up on the on our YouTube channel very soon. And yeah, other than that, thanks very much for coming, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.